I have spent the better part of my career working with entrepreneurs, 30, between 30 and 35 years doing that. And in the course of working with entrepreneurs, I discovered that there was a small proportion, maybe 10 or 15%, who had just found a better way of working. So I started to study them and continued to do that when I retired a couple of years ago. And what I identified,
I'm not sure if people can hear you.
okay, what I identified was that there were 5 qualities that differentiated these 10 or 15% from the routine entrepreneurs. And most of the entrepreneurs that I worked with were your typical high stress, family tension all of the time, always worried about whether their business was going to make it through next year, the bank knocking on the door, and so on. And the 5 factors basically were, first of all, that these people were doing work that was in the intersection of what they loved, what they were uniquely good at doing, and what was needed in the world. And that is not rocket science, but it's astonishing how few people are actually working in that sweet spot. Second thing is they work in partnership. They established, many of them were actually cooperatives, or they operated as if they were cooperatives. They were very egalitarian organizations, and they had a group of people who had complementary skills. And they did not try, under any circumstances, to run an entire enterprise alone. The third thing that they did is that they had gone back, not consciously, but they had gone back to the model in which enterprises ran in the days before the industrial age, before banks, and before marketing firms and so on. And so what they did is, instead of coming up with an idea and then trying to figure out how to sell it and how to finance it, they did all of their research up front to identify what was needed that wasn't being satisfied by existing organizations. And then they designed their enterprise collaboratively with potential customers and others. And what they found was that by the time they actually launched the business, that was the hard part, but by the time they actually launched the business, their customers and their other business partners were actually doing all of their selling and and helped them find the money that they need when they needed it for them. They didn't have to do any of that stuff. The fourth thing is that they relearned the critical lost skill of innovation, which I don't know whether it's because of the fact that so much of our entertainment is fed to us now. We've lost the ability to do that. But they used an iterative, imaginative process of coming up with something that was absolutely unique. There's a great cartoon recently from Hugh MacLeod from Gaping Void, some of you may know, says, "Don't be the best at what you do in the world. Be the only person that does what you do in the world." And that's what innovators do. And fifthly, I understood that natural enterprise, as I've come to call these 10 to 15% of organizations, is integral part of local community. It has to be community-based and responsive to and part of that community. And to give back generously to that community and constantly listen to what that community's evolving needs are. And as a result, they've evolved to be very well networked and very resilient to good times and bad, because they are now providing something that they know people need, regardless of the state of the economy. So in 2010, I retired, or some people say I resigned from the industrial economy. And since then, I've been studying economies and the challenges that we're facing, economic, environmental, and energy challenges. And I've come to the conclusion that James Kunstler is correct in his belief that we are heading for a time of what he calls the long emergency, which is a series of cascading crises, which could very well end up leading to the collapse of our industrial economy and the way in which we live today. And so I've been trying to figure out how we respond to that. What can we do? And concluded that rather than trying to mitigate or prevent it, what we should be learning how to do is to adapt to it, to change the way in which we think and operate in order to be able to accommodate to these changes which are going to be imposed upon us. There are a lot of things that we can do now, particularly things like relearning the essential skills that our grandparents had. But we shouldn't kid ourselves that we can't create a whole economy, new economy now from scratch, because the existing economy is going to fight us every step of the way. And we really do need, before we can fully implement it, to wait until that economy crumbles. But there are things that we can do now to learn and to experiment and to find out better ways of making a living. And so the key is timing. The key is not being too far ahead, and at the same time not being too far behind as we move to this new economy that we're talking about. There's a great book by Charles Eisenstein called Sacred Economics, which is a terrific summary of what that economy probably will eventually look like. So I'm looking forward to your questions and the ideas that my colleagues here today can offer and exploring how we can do that. Thank you.